Welcome to This Week in Taiwan. I'm Iris Xu. Every Saturday, we break down the biggest stories making headlines across the country. From politics and policy to culture and the unexpected. Whether you are tuning in from Taipei or halfway around the world, we've got you covered with what you need to know to stay in the loop. Taiwan is home to 23 million people, and you might think what happens on this small island doesn't affect you. But in reality, it is quite the contrary. From geopolitics to global supply chains, Taiwan is more connected to your life than you might expect. So let's get into this week's news and see just how interconnected we really are.
China is carrying out live fire drills in the Yellow Sea and increased patrols in contested waters. The latest developments in escalating China-Japan tensions, following remarks by the Japanese Prime Minister on Taiwan last week. President Lai Ching-te emphasized that such actions seriously undermine Indo-Pacific peace and stability, urging China to reconsider and exercise restraint. The inciting incident occurred Friday, November 7th, when Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi said a, quote, Taiwan contingency, where China invoked a naval blockade against Taiwan, could count as an existential threat to Japan, allowing them to mobilize their own military for self-defense. Her comments angered Beijing, which announced live fire drills in the Yellow Sea from Monday to Wednesday. Additionally, the Chinese Coast Guard announced Saturday that its vessel 1307 was conducting, quote, lawful patrols in China's Diaoyu Islands. The Diaoyutai Islands, as they're called in Taiwan, are a series of uninhabited islands which China, Taiwan, and Japan all contest ownership of. On Monday, President Lai weighed in on the situation, saying in an interview that China's multifaceted attacks on Japan seriously undermined Indo-Pacific stability. He pressed the international community to pay attention and for China to exercise restraint and defer to rules-based international order. Lai said,
I urge China to exercise restraint and demonstrate conduct befitting a major power rather than becoming a troublemaker for regional peace and stability. China should return to rules-based international order which is conducive to the peace, stability, prosperity, and the development of all. We urge China to reconsider.
Regarding criticisms of Sanai Takaichi's remarks by Taiwanese political figures, including former President Ma Ying-jeou and other KMT members, Lai stated that the U.S. ambassador to Japan publicly affirmed her remarks as positively contributing to U.S.-Japan relations and regional stability. Lai asked domestic politicians, especially in the opposition party, to respect Japan's domestic politics, pay attention to regional development, and avoid negatively interpreting Japanese political actions. Foreign Minister Lin Chia-lung confirmed Taiwan's increasingly close cooperation with the United States and Japan in political, economic, technological, and cultural fields this Monday in a social media post. Lin described the recent situation in East Asia as somewhat turbulent, adding details of his discussions with scholars and experts from the Japan-based Sasakawa Peace Foundation and U.S.-based Institute for Indo-Pacific Security. He underscored that Taiwan has always upheld its core values of democracy, freedom, and human rights, acting as a responsible and trustworthy international partner. He credits this as what allows Taiwan to work closely with other countries on the solid foundation of trust. The minister noted President Lai Ching-te's stance that peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait are essential elements for global security and prosperity. With Lai's value-based democracy core, the foreign ministry uses a comprehensive diplomatic strategy which leverages Taiwan's advantageous position at the intersection of the democratic value chain, the Indo-Pacific First Island chain, and the non-red supply chain, Lin explained. China is using cross-border repression to intimidate Taiwan's elected representatives, recently including DPP legislator Puma Shen, and weaken the democratic system to challenge the free and democratic international order, Lin noted. He said Taiwan will unite with its democratic partners to defend this order. President Lai Ching-te called on Legislative Speaker Han Kuo-yu to act with greater understanding after the speaker refused to speak out against China issuing an international arrest warrant against Taiwanese legislator Puma Shen. Lai said party divides shouldn't get in the way of defending the national sovereignty and dignity of Taiwan's people or governing bodies, and that Taiwanese members shouldn't make excuses for aggressors. On Sunday, November 9th, Chinese state media threatened to leverage Interpol and cross-border cooperation to arrest DPP legislator Puma Shen, supposedly for separatist activity. While Interpol has since stated that it will not allow China to put out a red notice on Shen due to the political motivations behind the request, Lai asked the legislative speaker to use his position to lead cross-party support for Shen. Han, however, replied with a sarcastic comment, accusing the president of, quote, making others take medicine while Lai is the sick one, end quote. Han continued that if the president actually wanted to help the legislature, he would restore the 4 pillars of Taiwanese security: protecting the ROC, protecting democracy and freedom, maintaining U.S.-Taiwan relations, and cross-strait peace. Speaking on the issue Monday, Lai said that he hopes Han can understand that any cross-border repression, no matter where or against whom, is an infringement on the sovereignty and rights of the whole of Taiwan. The issue is not about exploiting Shen's situation for political gain, but that the governing body in which Shen serves cannot remain silent on the issue, as repression against even one legislator is tantamount to repression of Taiwan's constitutional system. As for Han's comments on the 4 pillars of Taiwan's security, Lai said it was China, not the DPP, that has undermined those same pillars over the last 4 years. He said that through verbal and military intimidation, united front work, and domestic infiltration, China has continually sought to undermine cross-strait stability and sow discord between Taiwan and the United States. In the face of such attacks and suppression efforts from foreign actors, Taiwanese should be banding together, not finding excuses for the aggressors. The president urged Han to think twice, acknowledging that while inter-party competition is inevitable, all parties should work towards the betterment of Taiwan.
Hualien County's Fuli Township Raytheon village chief Wen-hua was removed from office on August 1st after the Interior Minister identified her as one of 5 sitting village or borough chiefs nationwide who hold People's Republic of China nationality. Interior Minister Liu Shifang said elected public officials may not hold dual nationality and that local governments must act strictly in accordance with the law and the central authority's interpretation, with no room for alternative readings. Deng, who obtained Taiwanese citizenship 17 years ago, has denied holding PRC nationality and says she was legally elected. She filed an administrative appeal shortly after her removal. In late October, the Hualien County Government's Appeals Review Committee overturned the township's dismissal order, ruling that the original action had not been properly handled. The reversal prompted a formal response from the ministry, which argued that individuals who retain PRC nationality while holding public office would owe simultaneous allegiance to both Taiwan and China, creating what it called a direct conflict of loyalty. Speaking to reporters at the legislature on Thursday, Minister Liu said the Interior Ministry will examine the legal basis for the county's decision, reiterating that the Nationality Act and the additional articles of the Constitution require elected officials to renounce any foreign nationality and that the rule must be applied consistently nationwide. The authority responsible for interpreting the Nationality Act is the Interior Ministry. Under Article 20 of the Act, an elected public official must renounce any foreign nationality within 1 year. It is on the basis of this legal requirement that we have instructed local governments to handle dismissals accordingly.
Taiwan's representative in Ottawa says it's too early to draw conclusions on whether closer relations between Canada and China will affect the fast-strengthening ties between Canada and Taiwan. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has moved to stabilize ties with Beijing as his government faces mounting pressure from the U.S. tariffs and volatile policy shifts from Washington. Carney met with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC summit in South Korea late last month, marking the first formal meeting between the two leaders since 2017. He also accepted an invitation to visit China. The diplomatic push has continued through several recent meetings between Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand and the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, with both sides pledging on November 11 to advance cooperation across trade, security, global governance, and cultural exchanges. When asked about potential implications, Taiwan's representative to Canada, Harry Zeng Houren, urged caution. He said Taipei is closely watching Canada's signals, but stressed that public remarks do not necessarily reflect settled policy. Zeng added that despite improved optics between world leaders, core strategic rivalries such as those between the United States and China remain unchanged. He also pointed to last week's G7 foreign ministers meeting in Canada, where members reiterated support for peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and backed Taiwan's meaningful participation in international organizations. Zeng said Taiwan will continue deepening engagement through Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy and by, quote, steadily demonstrating our values.
The U.S. State Department's approval of a new arms package for Taiwan has been followed by a $698.9 million contract awarded to Raytheon to procure air defense equipment, with completion expected by February 28, 2031. Taiwan's Defense Ministry said NASAMS, or National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, is a central part of efforts to strengthen the island's air defense network. The system, which has been combat tested in Ukraine, has automated detection, fire distribution management, and intelligence integration capabilities. Officials say the added capacity is intended to counter increasingly frequent Chinese military activity around the Taiwan Strait. According to Taiwan's 2026 defense budget, funding for the system, which was previously listed as a classified item, has been moved into the open budget at 35.7 billion NT dollars. The program, running from 2024 to 2030, includes radar procurement, launcher systems, training, and pre-delivery preparations. Quantities and other details remain classified. 5 days earlier, the State Department also approved a $330 million package for fighter jet spare parts and maintenance support, marking the first Taiwan arms sale since U.S. President Donald Trump returned to office. And that is This Week in Taiwan. Until next time.